Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. Today's video is gonna be absolutely bonkers. Now, the data is in, and finally, you guys, lawmakers are trying to pass new legislation called Wall Street Landlord Act, which is essentially trying to cripple institutional investors and allow us to accumulate enough supply at a faster rate. And it's no longer any mystery that institutional investors are purchasing entire communities, you guys, entire blocks of single-family residences, and then converting them, single-family residences, into rentals. Sometimes that's done in the form of a trust, you guys, full of tens of thousands of investors who obviously don't care about the tenants. But not only does that hurt tenants, it also hurts all of the natives and first-time home buyers that are priced out of the market. So today we're going to dig in a little bit more into detail to try to understand what this new legislation is and how it will help us. And you guys, do me a favor, understand I'm trying as hard as I can here, and I don't always want to say I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm not a financial advisor. So I just want to say, please guys, just like this video for me. Please just like this video, share it. Let's get the message out. Shoot me a comment below, hit notification, subscribe if you haven't already. But let's get started and take a look at this new legislation now. And this article is from Vox. It will be listed in my description. The name of the article is Democrats Eye New Legislation to Rein in Wall Street Landlords. And hopefully all of the lawmakers will get together from both parties and really work on this, guys, because we surely need it, in my opinion. So listen to some of this data, guys, because this is going to go into a little bit more about what the problem really is as far as institutional investing and why we even need a law to stop it to begin with. Institutional housing investors, largely the commercial banks, private equity, and other financial entities that flip homes or rent them out, have been the subject of conflicting media messages. On the one hand, we're told investors are buying up more housing than ever. In 2021, they bought nearly 1 in 7 homes sold in the 40 largest U.S. metro areas, the most in at least 2 decades, according to Redfin. In the first quarter of 2022, investors comprised between 1/4 and 1/3 of home sales in Atlanta, Jacksonville, Charlotte, Phoenix, and Miami. The U.S. House Financial Services Committee reported in June that corporate ownership of single-family rental homes has grown 3% annually since 2010, with the third quarter of 2021 posting the fastest year-over-year increase in 16 years. These trends are worrying researchers and advocates, stressed because there's evidence that corporate landlords, under pressure to deliver big profits to their shareholders, are more likely to evict their tenants, raise rents more aggressively, and shrink responsibility for basic maintenance and repairs. There's also some evidence that some investors have been targeting homes in Black neighborhoods at a disproportionate rate, accelerating gentrification and putting home ownership for some families further out of reach. So another problem is not only they're horrible landlords and they're going to beat up their tenants, but also remember, when they go into markets heavy, it's going to increase the prices. Essentially, there's so much institutional investing that it added to the surge of home equity and priced out I don't know how many locals and first-time homeowners. But not only is it pricing them out, these guys are going after the low affordable housing. I mean, do y'all see the problem? Do y'all understand the problem if you really stop and you think about what's going on? Do y'all see how this hurts normal Americans that are fighting to become homeowners? This is a problem, y'all. Let's jump back into the article and see what else is going on. On the other hand, housing owned by large corporate investors makes up a much smaller percentage of the nation's overall housing stock than is often suggested by headlines. Institutional investors, referring to entities that purchase 100 or more properties, accounting for under 3% of home sales in 2021 and in 2022, according to Freddie Mac. So-called mom-and-pop investors who own fewer properties are growing at faster rates, and according to the National Rent Home Council, only 1.16% of single-family rental homes were owned by rental companies. Americans for Financial Reform estimate that as of June 2022, private equity firms owned about 3.6% of apartments and 1.6% of rental homes. And you guys, 1.6% may not sound like a lot, but that's based on a lot of housing, millions of housing, guys. 1% of a whole bunch is still a lot. Defenders of the sector point to research showing that most people moving into single-family rentals are poorer, younger, have worse credit, have larger families, and are more likely to be single parents than their home owning counterparts. One study published last year estimated that 85% of single-family rental residents would not qualify for a mortgage. Taking away these rental options, advocates warn, would just take away more spacious living arrangements for younger families who can't afford to own or might not want to, even if they could. Others say the focus on Wall Street investors is largely a scapegoat to avoid wrestling with the real culprit of the housing crisis, the lack of available units. Freddie Mac cited labor shortages, land use regulations, zoning restrictions, political oppositions to new housing, lack of developments, and lack of land as a root cause of the housing shortage. I would say it's because they lifted the floodgates to demand, and that's why we're in the shortage. It's cool. So do me a favor, guys. What do you think the bigger problem is? And I'm not saying that we don't have a supply problem, okay? We definitely need more supplies in our housing market. But remember this, right now, because of all of the investing, right now, this very minute, we have 15 million homes that are vacant. So to me, the bigger problem is clearly the institutional investors, is clearly the investors. They're ruining our housing market. It's crazy. If just a million of those vacant homes went onto the market, we would officially have hypersupply. Just 1 million of the 15 million vacant homes. So in other words, you guys, I don't care about institutional investors. I say tax them like crazy, get them out of the market. And honestly, most of them are complete psychopaths and only care about themselves anyway, so why should we care about them? The Stop Wall Street Landlords Act explains. The stated goal of the new House bill is to deter future institutional investors into single-family homes. It would try to do this in a few ways, including barring corporate investors from claiming certain tax breaks, like the mortgage interest deduction, and imposing a transfer of tax on the sale value of new single-family home purchases. I like what this is saying so far. That would definitely hurt a lot of these guys. The legislation also would bar the government-sponsored mortgage companies, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and Ginnie Mae from assisting certain large investors in financing. I didn't even know they were assisting them now. The fact that they're assisting them now, it blows my mind. It means that people know what's going on and they're allowing it. And would establish a new tax credit to help affordable housing developers build and rehab homes in low-income areas. I love this so far. I don't know the details, and we need to know the details, but I love it so far. Groups representing institutional investors, unsurprisingly, have come out strongly against the bill. A spokesperson for the American Investment Council, which represents private equity companies, told Vox that his political motivated legislation completely misses the mark and won't help address the real challenges in today's housing market. So the thing is, guys, I don't agree with that investor or council person or whoever they say. I think that they're a large reason why we're in the problem we're in now. Now, obviously, the Federal Reserve, COVID, lockdowns, those things, quantitative easing is the primary reason why. But institutional investors, you can't disregard that they made the problem worse. David Howard, executive director of the National Rental Home Council, told Mercury News he believes the bill will only reduce the availability of single-family rental housing while making it more expensive, ultimately hurting the very people for whom need access to affordably priced rental housing. The thing is, guys, it's already ruined. So what's this guy talking about, right? I mean, they've already ruined it. So, so what they're doing isn't working. Something needs to change. Vice president at the National Community Stabilization Trust, a nonprofit that transfers foreclosed and abandoned properties to local housing groups, praised the bill's inclusion of the neighborhood homes tax credit, which also included in the Build Back Better bill the House approved last year. Siglin told me the coalition she leads to promote the tax credit was really pleased to see the measure included and commended the Stop Wall Street Landlords Act for not only including ending tax preferences for corporate investors, but also carrots like the tax credit to increase the supply of homes to sell to owner occupants. Right now, large corporate investors are often the only entities available with the financing capability to make repairs on homes. The neighborhood home tax credit, Siglin says, can help to fill this gap and keep more properties out of Wall Street hands. Her office said they work with experts, including the Urban Institute, to develop their bill. The Urban Institute Government Affairs Manager told me she hasn't read the Stop Wall Street Landlord Act and said her think tank does not suggest bill language or take official positions on legislation. A team of housing researchers and I met earlier with the rep and his team to discuss policy alternatives to increase rates of Black homeownership and the role of institutional investors in the housing market. It was a good conversation, and we always welcome the opportunity to share our research, answers, and provide evidence-based recommendation about policy. All right, let's finish out this article right now. Where the corporate housing sector is likely going. What about inflation and the much discussed housing contraction slowdown sparked by rising interest rates? Increased building costs have already led to a slowdown in investor home buying, a decline of 30% in the third quarter of 2022, the Wall Street recently reported. Redfin also just closed its own home flipping business following Open Door Technologies, another online house flipper, which just posted record losses. He thinks the bill will help stabilize some of the rising rents by decreasing demand from institutional investors, which still accounted for 17.5% of all home sales in the third quarter of 2022. Even if institutional investors only buy a small percentage of total housing, their presence in the bidding wars can still lead to higher costs for all buyers. Even though investor sales growth has slowed, experts expect their share of purchases to rise again soon as builders with unsold homes look to sell to rental landlords. Plus, a widely expected recession could rise unemployment and make it even harder for traditional buyers to compete with corporate bidders. While investor firms begin purchasing foreclosed homes after the housing crash, investors more recently have been pouring billions of dollars into new build-to-rent communities in more than 25 states. The National Association of Home Builders reported 13,000 such homes were started in just the first quarter of 2022, up 63% from a year before in November. The Stop Wall Street Landlords Act will not tackle the housing shortage, but it's a necessary part of the legislation puzzle. We need to massively increase housing supply. We need to figure out creative programs for first-time homeowners, and we need my new bill, which will stop the financialization of housing. Now, in conclusion, I do like where this is going. Now, I do prefer a free market. I prefer less government involvement, but I ask myself all the time, what's the worst of two evils? And because of that, I personally think they should be taxed, and they should be taxed hard because, quite frankly, the level of investing is completely wrecking us. And it does need to stop. So let me know, guys. Let me know if you agree with me. Comment below. Should the government tax institutional investors sharply, or do you think they should focus on a different problem and a different solution so that our housing market becomes more affordable once again? Let me know your thoughts, guys. I'm very interested to see how you feel. Now, other than that, you guys, I really appreciate you watching this video. I do hope you guys got some value, insights, and perspective. And if you're out there investing in real estate, you know I wish you luck, and I hope you win.